Hello my friends, and welcome back to another Foodie Friday Cook With Me video. In today's video, we're gonna be making a cozy, warm, delicious, yummy, fall weeknight meal. Now, I don't know about you, but when the weather starts to cool off, that means it's time to make delicious soups and just warm you from the inside out kind of meals. And one of the things that I love during the fall season is soup. 100% soup is always a go-to for me. So tonight we're gonna be making a delicious, creamy, thick and creamy clam chowder. Now, if you're not really a clam chowder person, you can definitely do a different type of chowder. You could do a potato, just a potato chowder, or even a corn chowder. There are delicious recipes out there, but I highly recommend that you give this recipe a try. It is not fishy at all. It is absolutely delicious and so very comforting. We're also going to be making a cheddar biscuit on the side, because what is soup without a delicious bready something on the side? And we're also going to be making a warm and gooey dump cake for dessert. So if you are here for it, let's get started. So dump cakes are a perfect weeknight or busy, cozy night where you're just looking to get things done really, really easy. A dump cake is the way to go, because literally all you're going to do is dump all of your goodies into your pan. So today we're gonna be using a 9x13 baking dish, and we are going to be making a cherry pineapple dump cake. Now that is the dump cake I first had probably 13 years ago or so. I was at a play date for my kiddos. I just had my daughter, and my son was a baby, my oldest son, and a friend of mine had made a dump cake, and it was delicious. And when she told me how easy it was, I instantly added it to our regimen. So we're just gonna go ahead and get that started and pop that into our oven, so that while the rest of our things are going, our oven's ready. So while that's going, we can get the rest of our things ready. So let's get started. All right, my friends, today's dump cake is gonna be a cherry pineapple dump cake. So you're gonna need a can of cherry pie filling, a can of crushed pineapple, a box of yellow cake mix, as well as a stick and a half of butter. And you're gonna start with a 9x13 pan. Now, if you go any smaller than this, you wanna make sure you bake it a little bit longer, but this keeps it nice and thin, and it allows it to bake appropriately and not, take forever. So go ahead and open up your cans. We're gonna start by layering the crushed pineapple all along the bottom of our greased 9x13 dish. I wish I had a prettier one, but I've just got this old school Pyrex that's gonna work. I was like, now I know what I'm looking for next time I'm at Home Goods. It's a nice pretty 9x13. I don't own one. I have lots of casserole pans, but not a 9x13. So I'm just going to make a thin layer of the crushed pineapple, and then we're going to use the cherry pie filling. Now, it's important that you're using cherry pie filling and not just canned cherries. This makes a huge difference. You can use sugar-free if you wanted to. It does change the taste a little bit, but it does cut back on the sugar in this meal, or in this dish. So you could do that if you wanted to. If you don't want to do that, make sure you're paying close attention, because I've accidentally got a sugar-free multiple times. Go ahead and just kind of spread out the cherry across the top. You can mix this together if you want, but I just kind of layer them together here. You could stir them in and mix them up. There's no rhyme or reason to how you want to do it. And then next you're going to open up your box of yellow food cakes. Yellow food cake? Yellow cake mix. Wow. You're going to open just the corner of the bag, and that allows you to have control as you're pouring the cake mix onto the rest of your fruit. So open up the corner and then evenly spread out this mix across the top of all of the fruit. And you're going to use the entire bag. So just make sure you spread that out evenly. As I get to the end here, I just kind of plop it in and then spread it out. But I did at the beginning try to, get it evenly spread across the top. And doing it this way makes it easier, because once you get it on there, it's very hard to spread it across the fruit. you know, when you're first putting it on there. So just be really careful, try to get it nice and even. And then you're going to cut your butter. I had to think about what the heck that was. That's butter. You're going to use a stick and a half, approximately. You can use more or less if you want to, but you're just going to put squares, you know, tablespoon squares of butter all across the top. I think I ended up with 15 tablespoons total. Each one of those squares is a tablespoon, but you know, like I said, if you want a little less or a little more, it's important that you put enough that the butter will melt and cover all of that cake mix. That's what allows it to get, you know, nice and chewy and browned and crusty. So make sure you put enough on there. Go ahead and lay them across the top in a nice even pattern like I have here. And then you're going to pop it into your oven and you're going to bake it, I believe it was at 350 for 45 minutes. I checked it at 40 and it was done at about 45. Okay, so our dump cake is in the oven. It's got about 40 to 45 minutes to cook. And while that's cooking, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our soup. And to start off, we're gonna get our bacon cooked. So the bacon is just to kind of put along the top and give it some good flavor. So we're gonna cook that so we can put that to the side, and then we'll get into the other parts of the soup. To get us started with our soup today, we're actually going to prep all of our ingredients so that way it's easier, just because things can tend to cook pretty quickly with this meal. The one thing I will say is that I definitely typically will double this recipe. However, not everybody was going to be home this night to eat it. But if you have a larger family like mine, absolutely double this recipe, or if you want to have leftovers, because it is so dang good. You're going to start by chopping about 3 strips of bacon into, you know, bite-sized pieces. You're going to be cooking this and using it to both season up your soup as well as a topping. So you're going to put that to the side, and notice there I used a plastic cutting board so that way I didn't get bacon grease all over my wood cutting board. Next up, we're going to use some celery. So for this recipe, you need 3 celery ribs. And what I did was I just purchased these celery sticks that were like ready prepared for snacks, because I figured we could eat them as snacks, nice and easy, toss them in backpacks for snack or lunch. And I used 4 just because I wanted to make sure I had enough. And when you buy celery, you know, raw, a lot of times it's much bigger than that. So I used all 4, but you need a total of 3 celery ribs. Next up, you're going to need 1 medium onion. I am just using a yellow onion here, and I am going to dice this up. It says chopped, but you can cut it however you like. Like I said before in some of my videos, my family doesn't like to have big chunks of onions and things, and so I like to keep my onion nice and small. So we're just dicing that up, and I'm grabbing my scraper tool here. If you guys don't have one of these, I would highly recommend this tool. You can find them at TJ Maxx and Home Goods, but they're really great to just help you pull up, you know, anything it is that you're chopping, just like I did there. It's really, really helpful. And then once you get all of your onion chopped up, you can just add that into your celery that you already have going. And that will be going into our pot to sweat and get absolutely delicious. It'll all go in together. So you can just put those in the bowl there together. You'll also notice I have a 3rd bowl there. That is for my garbage bowl. You're also going to need to add in some garlic cloves, some minced garlic cloves. The recipe calls for 5 garlic cloves. So you can, you know, press your garlic or mince it up yourself. I just use the ready minced in my fridge, and I put in a lot, probably a little more than 5 teaspoons or 5 garlic cloves. Then it calls for a little bit of thyme. You need about a half a teaspoon. I just kind of eyeballed it with my finger and put that in there. And then the next up, I'm getting my liquids ready. So you're going to need about 3 cups of chicken stock and a cup of half and half. And now it's time to open up our chopped clams. So you're gonna need 2 small cans of chopped clams, and you're gonna keep the clam juice that's inside of the can. So don't dump those out, just open those up and have those ready to go. And you're gonna keep that juice in there. So you'll have the chicken stock, the half and half, as well as the juice from your clams. You're also going to have an 8-ounce thing of clam juice. So you'll see that here in just a little bit. Finally, we're going to peel some potatoes. You'll need 2 medium potatoes for this recipe, and you'll want to give those a good peel. I'm just peeling them into my garbage bowl, and then we're going to chop them up into bite-sized pieces. I leave these pieces a little bit bigger because we really like to be able to have things to chew when we're having soup, so leaving them a little bit bigger gives your soup more of a stew feeling. If you're not into that, you can cut them much smaller than I do, but I really enjoy having these bigger pieces of potato in our clam chowder. And this is the last thing we're going to do to get ready before we head over to the stove and get to cooking. A key sign in my house that the weather is starting to cool off is that I have busted out this beautiful Dutch oven. I have had this forever, and I love to cook all of my fall soups and stews in this. It's the perfect tool for that. So we're going to get started by browning up our bacon. So remember, you chopped up 3 pieces of bacon, slices of bacon, and we're just gonna cook that up in a little tiny bit of oil just so it doesn't stick. And while that's cooking, I'm gonna bring over all of those other ingredients that I have prepped. Like I said, I don't always cook like this, but for meals like this that have a lot of ingredients, I just find this is a lot easier to bring the ingredients over. They're already ready to go, and as things are cooking, I can just add them to the pot, nice and simple. So we're gonna bring over all of our items, including our little bottle of clam juice. You'll need 8 ounces of clam juice, and you'll be good to go. So once your bacon is done cooking, which here you'll see mine is almost done, you're going to remove your bacon and put it onto a plate that has some paper towel. This will allow it to drain, but you're going to leave the rest of the drippings in your pan or pot. This is going to be what we cook our other vegetables in, and it's just going to add in another depth of flavor. Don't skip this part. It is absolutely delicious. Even if you choose not to put the bacon on top, just having that little bit of flavor in there is so good. Obviously, it is entirely skippable. You can 100% skip this part and just use some olive oil to cook your vegetables, but I really feel like it does add to the depth of the flavor. So now that everything is out of the pan, we're going to also add in 2 tablespoons of butter, and then we're going to saute our vegetables. So we're adding in our onion, celery, our garlic, and the thyme, and this is going to saute in your pan for a couple of minutes just to get it nice and soft. Probably about 5 minutes or so. You'll know they're ready to go when it gets very, very fragrant in your home. That's always a sign things are almost done. So speaking of fragrant, the dump cake was smelling super delicious, so I thought I would give it a little peek, and it was bubbly and so yummy looking, but it wasn't yet ready to come out. So we're going to come back over to our pot here, and you'll see our vegetables are ready to go, and we're going to add in the next item. So next up is a little bit of flour. You need about 1/4 cup of flour, and you're going to stir that in with your vegetables. Now, the recipe that I am providing does call to do it a little bit differently, but anytime I've ever made a roux, I always make sure that I cook the flour a little bit to get rid of that starchy taste. So just mix that in with your vegetables and your butter, let that cook for a couple of minutes, and then you're going to add in your 8 ounces of clam juice. You can find this in the grocery store right next to where you'll find your clams and the canned tuna. Let that start to simmer up and give it a really good stir with a whisk. This will get nice and thick, and this is the base to your really creamy clam chowder. So let that get nice and bubbly. Let it cook for a couple of minutes to just cook off that taste. You don't want it to be too floury or starchy when you're eating it. And then we're gonna start adding in the rest of our items. So next up, we're going to add in our chicken stock. We've got 3 cups of chicken stock, and you'll want to add this in slowly. So put about a cup in, give that a good stir so that all of your flour and everything doesn't get clumpy or anything. Once that's gotten a good stir and it's all combined, you can add in another cup. And again, just keep stirring. Watch for things to get clumpy. You don't want anything to get clumpy, so you can just keep stirring it with your wire whisk there. And go ahead and add in the rest of your chicken stock, and you'll see your soup is really starting to come to life. So this is going to need to come up to a simmer. Once you have your chicken stock in, then you're going to add in your potatoes. This is the next part that's going to bring our clam chowder to the creamy deliciousness it will be at the end. The starch in the potatoes will also help to thicken up your stock. So add your potatoes in. Be careful not to splash anything because this is your clam juice and your chicken stock. You don't want to get rid of all those fluids and liquids. They're absolutely delicious. So go ahead and add in your potatoes. Give them a good stir, and then you're going to put the lid on and you're going to let this simmer for a little while. Let it cook for about 15 minutes or so until all of your potatoes are nice and tender. You'll want to check on it regularly. Make sure you're stirring it. Keep your fire down low enough that you're not burning anything, and it'll be ready to go in no time. While that is simmering, we're going to go ahead and take our dump cake out. Oh my goodness, can you see the bubbles? My mouth is watering. I am editing this after we ate this delicious meal, obviously, and I really want another dump cake. I feel like maybe I'll have to make one of those this weekend. So go ahead and put that to the side, and you'll let that cool. While that's cooling and our potatoes are cooking, we're going to get started on our cheddar biscuits. So for this recipe, you're going to start off with flour. You'll need 2 cups total of flour. I'm using a 1/2 cup scoop here, so that's why you're seeing me go in a couple more times. That's the only thing that fits in the top of my flour container, but you're going to need 2 total cups of flour. Next up is our cheese. For this recipe, you're going to need about a cup and maybe a cup and a third of cheddar cheese. So normally I would, I forgot that I whacked my my cutter there, my cheese grater. Whoops, real life. Anyway, normally I would use a white cheddar cheese. However, for this recipe, I wanted it to have that traditional cheddar biscuit look. So we're going with the yellow cheese today. I'm still using Cabot, and it's a sharp cheddar. I definitely recommend using the sharpest cheddar you can find for this recipe. It just adds so much flavor. So again, I'm just kind of eyeballing it, making sure I have a cup and then some. And it called for a cup and a third, and I probably put in maybe a cup and a half. But I think more cheese is always a win. Next up is baking powder. You need a tablespoon of baking powder. This is what gives your biscuits some fluff. And then we're going to season them with garlic powder. Now for the garlic, you're going to need about a teaspoon or so of garlic powder. And you can put a little more, a little less, depending on what you like. Do not skip this part. It is absolutely essential to the deliciousness of these biscuits. Next up, we're going to use a little bit of salt. I think the recipe calls for about a 1/2 teaspoon. So we want to put in a little bit of salt in there, make some extra delicious. And then the biggest ingredient we're going to use today is our parsley. So you're going to want to get nice fresh parsley and flat leaf parsley. And you're going to need about 2 tablespoons of fresh parsley for this recipe. Some of it goes inside and some of it is going to go on top of your biscuits. So make sure that you are peeling or plucking your leaves off of the parsley, and then you're going to go ahead and give it a really good chop. So you want to dice it up nice and small, start off with some big strokes, and then what I like to do is hold the tip of my knife down on my cutting board, and then I kind of make like this paper cutter motion, if you will, and go across my my herbs that way. And this is going to give you a really good fine chop and make them, nice and flaky so that they're digestible and easy to eat in your biscuits. Once those are all diced up and ready to go, add them into your bowl, and then you're going to give all of your dry ingredients a good mix. We're not mixing in any of our wet ingredients yet. We're going to put those in separately, but just make sure that your dry ingredients are fully incorporated and ready to go. Next up, grab yourself another mixing bowl, and in this bowl, you're going to add in your butter. You're going to need about 1/3 cup of butter that's softened. You're also going to need 1 egg and 3/4 cup of water. Of milk. I actually put in a whole cup of water. I accidentally used my 1/3 cup instead of my 1/4 cup, if you noticed right there. So mine were perfectly fine, and my butter wasn't all the way softened. Part of it was, that part right there was, but the rest of it wasn't. So I was just a hot mess here. I was not 100% prepared. Full disclaimer, but I'm leaving it in there because this is real life, right? So my biscuits turned out perfectly fine. If you make a mistake, don't even panic. Go ahead and add your wet ingredients to your dry ingredients and give them a good stir. I'm using a whisk, but you can just use the fork if you wanted to. I realized that really wasn't giving me a good, zhuzh, that little tiny whisk that I was using there came with that mixing bowl from TJ Maxx, and it was not doing the job. So I went in with my hands and just made sure that all of my dough was fully incorporated. You don't want to over mix it because that'll make your biscuits kind of crumbly and tough, but mix it enough so that everything is incorporated. Wash your hands, grab yourself a sheet pan, give it a good amount of Pam or whatever nonstick you want to use, and then it's time to get your biscuits going. So this recipe is designed to make 8 biscuits. So what I'm doing is I'm using a tablespoon, and I am just doing a drop biscuit. We're not going to be rolling these out or anything like that. These are so quick and easy. It's wonderful. Just like a drop cookie, scoop some out and drop it onto your sheet pan. Make 8 of them, and then take whatever you have left in your bowl and divide it among them all to help them all be about the same size. They're going to be really big, and what we did was split them with my kiddos. Each kid got a half, and then they could go back for more if they wanted, but a whole one is really big, and they're pretty dense, so they're very filling. But it's up to you. You could even make them smaller and just bake them, for a quicker amount of time. You're going to pop these into your oven at 350, and you're going to bake them for about 8 to 10 minutes. So I'm just popping those into the oven, and I put it on 8 minutes to check them. That's always how I do it. I always start at the lowest. And now we're going to go back to our soup. So as you can see, it's bubbling up there, and our potatoes are ready to go. I'm using a flat wooden spoon to just scrape across the bottom. That just helps to make sure that all of the yumminess across the bottom has been lifted and is, in the soup. And now we're going to add in our clams. So we've got 2 cans, like we mentioned before, with the clam juice. Make sure you add that in there. Give it a good stir. Make sure it gets fully incorporated, and make sure that your heat is not too high. You want it simmering and bubbling, but not too high, pretty low. Finally, you're going to add in your half and half. You don't want to add that too soon because that will overcook the creaminess of your half and half, but add that into your soup, and you are getting really close to being able to eat this deliciousness. And while that is simmering, we're going to go back over to our cutting board and get the topping for our biscuits ready. So for your topping, you're going to melt a little bit of butter. You need about 2 tablespoons, and you're going to add in about a teaspoon of garlic powder and about a tablespoon or so of parsley. This part is completely optional. You don't have to do this. Your biscuits will come out and be absolutely delicious, and you can just put a little pat of butter on them if you wanted. However, this just takes them to that next level, and they're so delicious. So I would recommend doing doing this part. So again, I'm just picking off some parsley leaves. I'm gonna give those a good chop. We're gonna add that to our butter. We're gonna put that in the microwave and get it nice and melted so that when we take out our biscuits, they'll be ready to go. We're just gonna pour this right on top. They'll absorb a little bit of it and they'll be so delicious and buttery when we eat them with our soup. The final step for our soup is to add in a little bit of cornstarch to give it that nice, thick and creamy consistency. You're gonna mix 1 tablespoon of cornstarch with 1 tablespoon of water and add that to your soup. Let it simmer for about 5 minutes and you'll be ready to eat. Okay, my friends, we have finished up with our dinner. I have it all plated up over here and I am ready to give it a try. So I'm gonna start by trying the delicious clam chowder. It is steaming and delicious and just looks so incredible. So let's go ahead and give it a try. Tastes like a restaurant. You know what I forgot? I forgot my oyster crackers. This part is entirely skippable. If you don't like to put crackers on your soup, you can completely skip that part. But adding in that little bit of crunch to your soup is absolutely delicious. Next up, I'm gonna give our biscuit a try. Looks so flaky and yummy. With the butter and the fresh parsley on top, oh my goodness. Finally, let's go ahead and give our dump cake a try. I've got my own little serving here and let's give it a try. So good. Very cobbler-esque, and using the salted butter on top just gives it a little extra flavor. You could top this with a little bit of fresh whipped cream from a can, Cool Whip, ice cream, whatever you want. I like it just the way it is. So, all right, my friends, that is it for today's Foodie Friday Cook With Me video. I hope that you enjoyed this. I highly recommend you give this meal a try, especially on a cool fall night. It is so perfect. And until the next video, my friends, happy eating. I'll see you soon.